This RE Nebo Peak was completely changed by a new shock, but basically the same as the old shock. Stick around to find out how. Thanks for tuning in. If you caught our e-bike light shootout at the end of 2024, you might remember this bike, the RE Nebo Peak. It was a bike that we all really enjoyed. It's light, it's playful, kind of all of the P words, poppy. It was a bike that I think if somebody is looking for an e-bike, a little boost to get them up the hill, but they want the feel of just that regular trail bike, this is something that should definitely be considered. But we did have one issue, and that was kind of an overactive rear end. Drew?
Yeah, you know, it's funny, it was like certainly an issue that I was a little bit more critical about, and it wasn't something that happened all the time, but when it did happen, it was in kind of a specific scenario, and it was not in a really great scenario. And essentially what that was, and we can cue the soundbite, I felt that there is a pretty noticeable spike in energy transmitted when that rear wheel hits kind of square edge or sharper hits.
Yeah.
And so when I got into Nighthawk, which is one of our black diamond kind of technical descent trails, you'd round a corner and it'd be a, smooth, nice, flat dirt. And then there would be a rock, and it's 3, 4, 5 inch tall rock into a, 2-3 foot drop on the backside. And I'd go over that drop and kind of unweight the bike a little bit to suck that rock up and get down on the backside of that drop for a turn. Mm-hmm. And I would find that when that back wheel hit that rock, it would just transmit quite a bit of force and buck the back end of the bike up into me. And it, rather than just kind of like absorb it and take it in stride. To reword it again, essentially I would notice that going over like a little drop or hitting like a last rock before a chute, the shock that was on the bike just seemed like it was a little bit stiff, and it transmitted a little bit of energy up through the back wheel and into the rider, and just kind of unsettled me. And after reaching out and talking to Tyler Cloward at RE Bikes, we found out that since the bike came out, they have made a running change, and they are now speccing the bike with this larger volume, big air canned rear shock. And we wanted to see, can a rear shock transform how a bike rides? Overall, I think the whole crew, as you could tell by the awards and how much everyone was kind of excited, the bike is an awesome bike as is, but we were hopeful to see if that one little critical area we had about it could be improved with just changing out a shock, specifically for a larger volume air shock from the same brand. So, Travis, let's get back to the riding and tell me where it performed and how it improved or didn't affect your ride.
Yeah, just really soaks it up. That would have been that big compression at the end. That would have been another spot where the old shock would have just pushed into my feet really hard on the end of that compression. Woo! So that little rock that I just hopped off there, that was probably the first place that I noticed what Drew was talking about. Not everybody maybe was as critical as Drew was on it. And after going through and I stopped looking for like the buck you might get from having your rebound too fast. I really found that, it's more of a subtle push in the pedals, like pushing forward on your feet, pushing forward on your legs. As soon as you land, you just kind of got this unsettling push. And with this shock on there, it just takes care of that and just makes it a much smoother transition as you go through the last bit of stroke of the travel. All right, so before we go any further, let's talk about what this larger air can is actually doing. So this is the RockShox Debonair Linear XL air can, and it is an air can upgrade to this Super Deluxe Ultimate. And what RockShox is claiming that it's doing is kind of filling that gap between the Super Deluxe Ultimate and the Vivid. So why is a higher air volume shock better? Well, it creates less resistance for the shock and it allows it to move more freely. So going through rough and chunky sections like this, the shock is just able to absorb the chatter and the chunk better and just has an overall more supple ride. So that was another great example of a spot on the trail where I'm coming down and over that rock roll, down that little rock drop, the final compression is where I was feeling that old shock just kind of push my feet and my legs forward. And with this new larger air can, it just kind of, it just eliminates that sensation.
Well, for me, the verdict is yes, the shock can change the ride. Travis, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it certainly took care of a lot of things. It just improved the ride overall. It made the ride more supple. It made the bike track better. Most importantly though, that kick that we were getting, it took care of that. Ari has, like you were saying, Ari is sending out all of the Nebo Peaks now with this bigger air can on the RockShox Super Deluxe. But if you have an older one that has this smaller RockShox Super Deluxe, or even I guess a different bike,
Any bike, if you're
any
noticing
bike,
that.
and you're experiencing that kind of kick forward, that push forward, you fiddled with adjustments and you just can't figure it out, RockShox sells this. It's called the Debonair XL Linear air can upgrade for like $97. So for 97 bucks, you're gonna take care of some issues and really kind of have a brand new shock. It is for Shox, Super Deluxes, Super Deluxe Ultimates, I believe 2023 or later. So thanks for tuning in. Drop a comment. Have you experienced this with your RockShox Super Deluxe Ultimate? Did you upgrade to the bigger air can? Let us know.